Today's guest speaker stands out as a superstar in the rocky field of investment management. If you're looking at the current global investment landscape, it can be very intimidating. As John Maynard Keynes famously said, successful investing is about anticipating the anticipations of others. In the last 10 years, the investment management industry has seen banks and international investment firms enter the market while existing investment companies started into heavy consolidation. As well, foreign content restrictions have been lifted, and more recently, the federal finance minister released his policy around income trust tax distributions. If you add to that the aftershocks of the recent credit crunch and the low-interest mortgage crisis erupting simultaneously in the US and the UK, it's understandable that investors are wary. Yet AGF Management Ltd is thriving in this market and celebrating their 50th anniversary this year. They serve over 1 million investors and have $55 billion in total assets under management. It was probably 55 million a long time ago. They're proudly Canadian, but certainly a global company with operations in the United Kingdom, Tokyo, Singapore, and Beijing. AGF is an independent company still controlled by the family that founded it in 1957, and it stays successful in an uncertain market through innovation and diversification. Just last year, AGF received the Advisor's Choice Investment Fund Company Award, and in the last 9 months it has been the top non-bank selling firm. Part of the secret to that success in the international market and that innovation is Blake Goldring himself. A University of Toronto grad who completed his graduate studies in France, he headed up AGF's Japanese and Asian portfolio and helped establish their operations in Dublin, Ireland. He is also a director of the Canadian Film Institute, the World Wildlife Fund, and an honorary colonel of the Royal Canadian Regiment. His diverse interests are likely the key to AGF's success in a diverse and complicated world. Please welcome Blake Goldring.
Well, thank you, Rod. I must say, with that sort of introduction, I'm actually quite excited to hear what I'm going to say as well. I want to say it really is a great honor and a pleasure to see so many of you here taking time from your day to come and hear this message today. I also want to just say, too, and acknowledge the students from the university. I now know where you're seated, so I'm going to be sharing some little rules today, all right? So I'm going to be watching you from up here, all right? Honored head table guests, members of the Canadian Club, ladies and gentlemen, this is a great pleasure. And Rod, I have to say, knowing the firm you're working with, that I'm a little bit nervous. You know, full, true, plain disclosure. You see, I have to say the Goldrings, I'm the first one to ever have a chance to speak at the Canadian Club. And, I have to say that the family has had a long association with one of your rival organizations, the Empire Club of Canada. In fact, I was a past director. My father here was still is today on the foundation, and my grandfather is up somewhere. He was a past president. So if I get hit by a stroke of lightning or something like that, you'll understand, okay? So I'm a little bit anxious. But this club, dating back to 1897, has been really the podium, the forum for a lot of great thinkers, politicians, business people, social activists, others who have come to talk about really important issues of the day. Most recently, you've had a political series, and I know that you've had the Premier of Ontario, Dalton McGuinty, had the Prime Minister as well come and speak. Both passionate Canadians, both people with great vision and ideas. And I run an international business, so I'm not going to be able to really talk about what it is running a province or a country. But just like them, I can tell you that when you have a vision, a dream, and you drive on, you get a few bumps and bruises along the way. However, I'm going to spare you all a session in group therapy today. Instead, what I want to do is really reveal a lesson I believe that I think will strike a chord with all of you. And it has to do with what it means to be a Canadian, something about really the key roles for taking a Canadian company onto the world stage. And I call this putting our maple leaf on the world map. AGF is part of a proud group of Canadian companies that has been aggressively moving internationally over the last while. Companies like the Magnas of the world and the Barracks and the RIMS, all the great financial institutions, there are a number of great Canadian companies that have been making big moves internationally. Well, we're proud to be part of them. For 50 years we've been competing, and AGF is thriving. As you mentioned, it's our golden anniversary at the firm. We kicked it off, though, the year by being named as the Advisor's Choice Award, which For many of you, what does that mean? It means that we were selected by our clients as the firm that they most want to deal with. We've been breaking records and setting all-time sales highs in our company. And I have to say that our firm was founded and built on an entrepreneurial spirit. And this is something that is as live today as when my father co-founded the firm back in '57. What we are, the firm, we're proudly independent and we're proudly Canadian. And some of you know us as only a mutual fund company, and that's probably not a bad thing because that means you probably own some of our mutual funds. However, I can honestly say that over the last number of years, my management group has been working very hard to change us from a mutual fund company into a global investment management firm. Today we operate on 3 continents, Europe, Asia, and North America. We manage, as you mentioned, $55 billion in assets. Half of our revenues come from international sources, half from Canada. Half our assets are in fact Canadian and half are international. We have a very vibrant operation based in Dublin, Ireland, continues to prosper and grow. We've got a growing Asian presence with an investment hub based in Singapore, business in Japan as well, and a very profitable interest in a company called Smith Williamson, which is a large private investment management firm that's based in London, England. They manage about £8 billion sterling. Now, I can say and feel a sense of pride that we've been able to build and grow these businesses while competing against some of the biggest and most profitable and successful investment management firms in the world. The bottom line, then, is that you too can be very proud of the way Canadians have prospered in a global economy. We've shown that what Canadian ingenuity and what determination can do on a world stage. We can be proud as Canadians, beyond hockey, that we have a lot to offer as Canadians. So this success really begs the question, if we're already successful as Canadians at taking companies into the world stage, then what is the challenge? What's the problem, you might be asking? The answer lies, quite simply, in a very clear answer, a stark reality, that foreign flags are being planted on our Canadian map. But not just foreign flags, but more and more foreign flags are being planted. And it's increasing at a pace. The flags that we're seeing are not just European or American. We're seeing flags from South America, Australia, Asian flags. Some of our best-known companies are being acquired by large foreign entities. This is particularly true in the energy, mining, and technology businesses. You can think of retailing as well. The fact is that the world wants Canadian commodities. The world wants Canadian oil and gas. The world wants Canadian know-how and ingenuity. It's a little bit ironic that Wilfrid Laurier, great Prime Minister, said at one point that the 20th century was going to belong to Canadians. Well, in fact, as we start the 21st century, it's looking more a bit like Canada's belonging to the world. Furthermore, there's been a sharp cooling off in foreign investments by Canadians. And StatsCan confirms this. And just quote, in the second quarter of 2007, Canadian direct investment in the U.S. economy fell by $13.8 billion to $220.7 billion. Furthermore, StatsCan reports that Canadian direct investment in all other countries decreased by $14.2 billion to $287.5 billion. At the moment, we're spending less, not more, to grow outside our borders. And this is odd, in a sense, that this is at a time when our Canadian dollar is trading at all-time historic highs. When our global purchasing power is much stronger than it's been for many, many decades, we're not spending as much internationally. Now, like many of you here, I'm a hockey fan. I believe that the best defense is a strong offense. So we know it's very tough to compete on a global stage. It's tough to compete with much larger and better financed entities. I know that because AGF has been doing exactly that for the last 50 years. But the fundamental question remains the same. Is it better to swallow or better to be swallowed? Should we worry that Canadian owners see a better opportunity in selling their companies than in acquiring foreign entities? I believe that it is a terrific and a very important concern. It's something that we've got to pay attention to. Call it the hollowing out of corporate Canada. Leadership from Gord Nixon at RBC Group, he's been talking about it, or Tom DeQuino, the chairman and CEO of Council of Chief Executives, they've been talking about it. Happily, our government has taken it to heart as well. It's unconscionable if you think that proxy companies that are really owned by foreign governments are allowed to come in and take over Canadian companies without any question. That's just not right, and that's got to be changed. The government realizes that a strong and vibrant Canada needs a strong and vibrant business base. We need companies that are headquartered here, companies that are leaders in their industry. They create jobs for Canadians, good career paths, and provide growth and opportunity for our children and our students. So let's work together by investing in Canada's prosperity. And I believe that the best way to do that is by investing abroad. Now, doesn't that make some good sense? You might say, well, okay, Blake, my man, what's the plan? The answer, you see, is that you really have to have your own house in order before you set out to buy your neighbor's property. So here, or abroad, are 6 rules to be more competitive in this global economy. These are 6 rules that we saw at AGF that have really helped to allow us to prosper. I believe that they'll help you build business and value in your business and your industry. And hopefully that you're going to like these 6 rules. I think they're good commandments to live by. So here goes. Number 1, understand your strengths. Know who you are, what you stand for, what you're good at, and what you're not good at. For instance, we made a conscious decision at AGF that we are an investment management firm. That's what we are, and we're going to put all our effort in to be the best at it. At AGF, we said we're money managers. We expanded our mutual fund business, created a trust business. We became involved in the institutional space. We grew our business internationally. We made a number of strategic acquisitions. And I should just say, equally, knowing not what you want to be, we don't want to be a distributor. We made that conscious decision. There are some who said, well, you have to have distribution in the retail funds business to be successful. We said, well, no. You have to work very closely with distribution. You have to understand them very closely, but you do not have to own them. And it's nice when you can prove the pundits wrong and that you can succeed if you stand for, you in fact stand and believe what you say and you follow through on that. The second point is focusing on the long term. Stick to your guns. There will always be forces outside your control. Short-term events can always knock the wind out of your sails. You know, take a look at just the recent past, the calamitous events of, say, a 9/11. Today we're, working through the whole issue of the subprime debt issue. We can go back to many examples. Tech meltdown. But tech meltdown, how many people at that point would have stood up and said, this is a time to go and buy RIM? Had you done so, you'd be looking at a 4 times return on that investment. That's a great homegrown story of great success and moving aggressively internationally. Now, we don't know what's the next crisis going to hit. All we know is for sure that something will come from somewhere. But when you run a public company, there's always a lot of noise. There's always a lot of tension on you. You've got to learn, though, to just shut out the noise. You've got to discount it, stick to your game plan. And this is especially difficult to do when you're reporting on a quarterly basis. Discipline is a must, and self-doubt is not an option. The third rule is know your clients. Be a valued partner. At AGF, we've got multiple stakeholders, our investors, our financial advisors, we've got our shareholders, we've got our clients, we've got the communities in which we work. We try to provide value to all of them. Now, trying to keep the proper balance is, I think, what challenges a lot of companies, and that's where sometimes things get a little bit out of kilter. In our case, we started the decade by stop bringing out high-yield products when clients were looking for this type of product. Frankly, we got a little bit complacent, a little bit lazy. We started to suffer redemptions. We paid a high price. We stopped listening to the marketplace, stopped listening to our customers. So what did we do? We decided to reconnect with our customers. We got back on the road. We spent a lot of time talking to hearing what they needed, what they wanted. We filled out our product line. We brought in new energy, brought in new people. Let me give you an example. And this is one area. I see Mero Casarano from AGF Trust. Here's a great success story, folks. In the year 2000, I was offered the value of the license to have AGF Trust, which is a downtown Toronto license to have a trust company. That was the value somebody put on this company. Today, under the stewardship of a group of dedicated leaders there, we've gone and built a $4 billion trust company with the loan assets growing at a 62% compound rate in each of the last 3 years. And it is something which is providing real value to financial advisors. They are looking for a firm that provides products and services to meet their needs of their clients. And we're able to answer that with AGF Trust. That, to my mind, is a good example of what you can do when you have focus. So it's, again, knowing what your client wants and being a valued partner. Lesson number 4, hire the best and brightest. And I would just tag on to that, say you've got to have the best and brightest, but have shared values and principles. You can't do it alone in building a business. And I was really flattered in Rod's intro when he talked about superstar. Well, you know what? That was very flattering, but I tell you, it's not anything about one person. You think of examples of different companies, and say an example of a Steve Jobs and what's being done at Apple, or Peter Monk, or what he's done with Barrett. It's all being done thanks to great teams. People are your greatest asset. There's no question about it. And this is especially true in the investment management business, where it's all intellectual property and it's relationship driven. In international business, it's essential, even more important, to really cultivate relationships, spending a lot of time, energy, understanding different cultures, languages. And these tend to be, the biggest challenges and are staffing when you move internationally. I would actually be remiss at this point not really to acknowledge, I see a lot of my fellow executives here, Randy Ambrosi, I mentioned Mario and Rose, of course, up here, Martin Hubis and his excellent investment management team. I've got a number of executives here today, and I just want to say a big thank you to all of you, because it is thanks to efforts and the teams you've built that have allowed us to achieve the success. So thank you. Rose, I didn't see you there. Good. Lesson number 5, remain innovative and be flexible. The early bird gets the worm. The innovative company gets the spoils. When we started AGF, and my father, he had this great idea of bringing the first American fund, retail fund, to Canadian investors. And today we've got over 50 funds. But along the way, we had many firsts. Came out the first global government bond fund, the first China fund, the first Japan fund, the first money market fund, the first asset allocation service, the first wrap account. Innovation is critical to success. If you're not going to be bringing out new products, then you might as well pack up and go home. The same innovation led to the creation of AGF in 1957, and it's the heart of everything that we do in 2007. My final rule is show leadership in the community. The community looks to us to lead. And this might sound trite, but as business executives, senior people in the financial industry in this great country of ours, we've got a right and a responsibility, frankly, to lead and become involved. I'm proud right now to be working with RIM's Jim Basili. He's created a group called the Canadian International Council. The idea is really to get some of the best minds at different universities across our country focusing on foreign policy issues that touch Canadians. These might be in energy, they might be in the environment, but these are issues that impact us all today, but moreover, the future generations. And it's important to talk about these things. It's important to talk about the environment, energy, and security. Security is an issue, too, which is near and dear to my own heart. It was mentioned that I'm the Honorary Colonel of the Royal Regiment of Canada. And, you might say, well, why is that? A guy who's never, until recently, fired guns or gone marching, also until recently. Why would I be attracted to that sort of thing? Well, I have to tell you, it struck me as I saw these young men and women in uniform prepared to go and pay the ultimate price so that we can continue doing what we do. And I think that's a pretty special thing. I also think, too, that in our world, business continuity doesn't exist without security, and likewise, security doesn't exist without business continuity. The two are absolutely dependent on each other. Created a group called Canada Company. Our motto is many ways to serve. It's really taking leaders like yourselves and saying, okay, is there a way to help our troops? And, I'm proud to say it's canadacompany.ca. That's my little plug. But, what we've been able to do are impact and help our soldiers. For instance, under the leadership of Jerry McGaughy at CIBC, he stepped forward with $1 million, which is now being increased to $1.8 million through other donations, to help fund what was called the Canada Company Scholarship Fund, which really provides post-secondary school education for the children who've lost a mom or dad in active combat mission. And it's a pretty special thing which is going to help change the lives of these kids and make them a little bit better after the suffering that they've had. So a lot of you here in this room, and I know many of you here today, and you're very involved in many different causes, and I truly applaud that and really celebrate that. I think those of you who do want to look at different causes, really I encourage you so, because we all have a natural platform to share our skills, our connections, and our good fortune. So there are my 6 rules. I should ask the Rotman kids to go and rattle them off, but I'll help you out with this. Number 1, know your core strengths. Number 2, focus on the long term. 3, understand your client needs and wants. 4, hire well. 5, be innovative and flexible. And the final one is show leadership. These 6 rules have contributed to the success at AGF. And I invite you to use one or all of them. And, my encouragement is really, this is the time to really seize the moment. It's the time to really advance our country's economic interests abroad. And it's truly up to us as business leaders to do that, because our future generations really expect it. Plant the Canadian flag in other markets and other maps. Thank you, and I wish you all every success.
Just check that that's working. Thank you, Blake. As I mentioned, Blake has kindly offered to take a couple of questions after that great speech. I think this is the Rotman kids getting you back with the complicated questions. The first one is your comments on the current state of the Canadian currency and the short and long-term impacts on the Canadian economy and Canadian business. In under a minute.
Well, I've got a whole team of investment executives right here who I should really defer to. But, clearly it's been an issue on the manufacturing front. And, the greater issue near term is that we're going to be into a situation where a slowdown in the United States is going to put additional pressure on the Canadian market. Fortunately, there continues to be good growth internationally in China and India. I think inevitably we're looking at a slowdown. But, again, we've got to look long term here. And, history is replete with, slowdowns in the market, and things bounce back. And almost inevitably you'll see things come back at a higher level later on. So, yes, it's an issue. But, again, this is a great opportunity with a strong Canadian dollar to be outside and investing strongly and planting these flags internationally. So I still remain quite optimistic on the markets.
The next question is that shareholders want decent returns. Isn't that what's driving the sale of many Canadian firms? What's the implication of this in the near future, and isn't that good for shareholders?
Well, certainly, the role of a CEO is really maximize over the long term shareholder value for an enterprise, and there's no question about that. The bigger question, though, is in the maximization. Is it in fact, what are the motivators? In other words, why would a company have to sell out? Are they compelled to do so for whatever reason? Have they really spun out the end of their line, or is it a case of easy money allowed companies to be purchased, or a momentary stumble? I mean, all too often a momentary stumble, a fall in a stock price could see a company all of a sudden taken out by either private equity or hedge funds. Candidly, I think it's a bigger issue. You don't want to have a hollowing out of your economy. You need strong Canadian companies. You need to see provide opportunities for firms to grow and prosper in this country and provide the opportunity for our youth.
This is definitely from the students. What is the biggest mistake you've ever made? We're gonna limit that to business. And and how did you bounce back?
Well, I thought about something along this line, and candidly, it's things that I have not done. Had an opportunity at one point to go and buy a company, and I chose not to. I felt it was a little bit too expensive, and in retrospect, it would have been just the right thing to do. A little stretching at the time would have been the right move. It would have been transformational, and I've thought often what the world would have been like afterwards. I suspect, too, I would have had a lot of really sleepless nights if we had, in fact, taken all the debt that we would have had to do in order to complete that acquisition. But, what did it teach me? It's, again, keeping your own counsel. I think, there are times when you have to be, step out on that ledge a little bit further, again, taking prudent risk. But again, I think, that's probably what I learned from that.
Just the last question we have time for. What do you foresee will be the impact of the U.S. election in 2008 on Canada and Canadian business?
Well, who's got the crystal ball? Who's going to win that election? I think that clearly the Republicans probably run their course, and I'm not a great political commentator on this, but I think that it's probably the Democrats' turn at bat. So what does that mean? I think America, they're very concerned today, obviously about trade, they're obviously concerned about their dollar, but from a Canadian perspective, they're very concerned about security. And for Canadians not to really pay attention to that, and how Americans have really linked the whole issue of trade and security as really one thought, that could be our big issue. And so I think it doesn't matter what political stripe, whoever wins, this will be a dominating issue. And I think everything from energy security to looking at our sovereignty to looking at how we have cross-border trade, this is going to be impacted by that very issue.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Blake. Fascinating. And I'd like to now call on Henry Pankratz, past president of the Canadian Club, to formally thank Blake Goldring. Henry?
Thank you, Rod. And thank you once again, Blake, for joining us here today and for your words of wisdom and your 6 rules of success. I'm sure everybody was taking notes like I was to try them in their own organization. And thank you as well, Robert, to Citigroup for being our sponsor today. Well, it's certainly been a golden year, and a year of awards for Blake Goldring, for AGF, and its more than 1 million investors. This in spite of the uncertainty and volatility in the capital markets, a matter that I'm sure weighs on the minds of many of us, and most definitely on those that work day in, day out like Blake, trying to create wealth for shareholders. AGF has profited from its independent status in the industry and its innovative approach to investment management. And most importantly, as Blake has mentioned, the key to AGF's success is its willingness to adapt to a changing market, not just to roll with the punches, but to embrace change head on. Alan Greenspan, the former U.S. Federal Reserve chief, often touted the benefits of flexible economic approach. Flexibility, he said, increases the ability to react to the consequences of inevitable cyclical imbalances. And much has been made of the hollowing out of corporate Canada, referred to by Blake over the last few years, and the threat of foreign takeovers and the threat to to our economy. And while this is a subject for another luncheon, it's terrific to note once again that AGF is a Canadian-owned and operated success story. Congratulations to you on that, Blake. A success story that is celebrating its 50th year of operation. Despite challenging times, AGF has shown the strength and vision to continue to perform and flourish well into the next half century. So congratulations to you and your team, Blake, and thank all of you for being with us here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Henry. Thank you again, Blake. Thank you to Citigroup for your sponsorship of today's luncheon. I hope that you've all enjoyed the speech today, and I now declare this lunch adjourned. Thank you.